All right, today we were at Friendly's lab in Sacramento, California, Sambo Creek, running the Mesclatore. And I wanted to talk about, what I saw, what you saw, and how things are run, and what if you're happy with the product, and just kind of everything.
Right.
So we came into this lab today to do a full review of the Mesclatore, and like any lab, there were delays, but they were not anything to do with the equipment that was run, because in my opinion, the wash process was very quick and cleanup is very quick. So, but intake orders, things like that, the extractors had to tend to in between. But luckily for the hash, it was in the most cold room ever. So not lucky for us. That was freezing.
What did you think about that?
Okay, so I think in me watching the Mesclatore, and at the end, I could see that in the whole process for I would say that whole thing would be about an hour. If I was doing just one wash, one run, and I was prepped, ready to go, and to empty out and hose out, that's like an hour, right? Would you say?
I would say.
So, but it just, there was like a few pauses that we had to take, but that room was so cold that it didn't change. And I don't personally, if you're asking me as someone that would be washing and reviewing other equipment in the past, I would say that room is like overkill on the cold.
Unnecessarily cold. Yeah. I agree.
It was so cold that everyone felt like they needed to take breaks for sure. But then you're just punishing yourself because you pretend you can get warm. So it was a little bit cold. A little bit cold, and I feel as though it could have been a little warmer, like 50, and still been, because every single thing, the sieve plate made it faster.
So like in other labs, I mean, really all you need is an air conditioner. Again, everybody has their opinion on how they want to do things, and I'm not criticizing how anybody's choosing to run their equipment. I just think it's unnecessarily cold. And from experience with other labs, at least with our system, I can't speak for anybody else's, you just don't need that temperature.
Well, I think when they went from hand washing to having a machine, they were probably still going off their standard operating for machine wash or for hand wash, because you're going and it gets warmed up easily. And so I think for them, if they're in and they can add ice as they go and everything, which that's another thing I did not see at any point other than the beginning cooling down of the machine, which you were saying if you had a chiller, it eliminates the need for ice entirely. The chiller with a reservoir that's jacketed to hold temp.
But you notice that the ice was only used to chill the water, and there wasn't really any ice left over in the water when they were done, right? I mean, it was just to
No, before they even put the material.
Of course.
Yeah,
the ice had already melted.
Job. Yeah. It wasn't even 5 minutes.
Right. The ice had already melted.
It only took 3 to 4 minutes or so to fill, which, how big is the reservoir?
I mean, full to the top, it's 100 gallons. Okay. But
you don't ever fill it up that much.
No, because
material
when you agitate the walls, the water on.
Yeah, because you're creating a vortex.
A small vortex. Yeah. So there is that. But just going back to temperature, the reason that I'm not a big fan of running at such low temperatures is that the user is uncomfortable. Yeah. And my philosophy is that the ergonomics of the system are just as important as the system's performance. And so if the user is not comfortable, you're not having a good work experience,
Are you really
work
living?
environment. No, because so you want the artisan to be there to
Sure.
monitor, right?
Sure.
And if you're not comfortable with what you're doing, you're not going to do your job well. You're not going to want to be in that room because it's too cold.
Right.
So that's the way I see it. Machines, in my opinion, in this case, are not meant to replace the human. They are made to make the job easier. So the artisan, the hash maker, his time is best spent by monitoring the process, just looking at the hash, seeing what's going on, looking at that flower, instead of, like, for example, pushing a paddle or something like that, right? The mechanical operation is not what that can be automated easily, but the making process that you need a trained professional, a skilled eye, by having automation, you free up that time for the person to be able to, like, pay attention to what they're doing, but they have to be comfortable how they're working. That's why the height, just everything about the system has to be in such a way that the user's comfortable doing it, because that way they can focus on their work.
So that brings me to, okay, so what's the interface on the front of the Mesclatore called?
The screen, the PLC.
Yeah, the PLC.
Yeah.
Okay. I was really impressed with the PLC.
Thank you.
So notable things, and I'm sure that you'll see when I post little snippets, but I was fascinated with that there's a model, like a digital model of the machine on the screen that's, like, nice to look at. And it tells you information while it's nice to look at. And so things that I thought were cool were that the functions would turn red and green based on if they were on or off. And I thought that was cool. And there's a really nice, easy to disconnect thermoprobe that is at the bottom. And so there's a temperature read on that. And there's information that scrolls across like a ticker or something, right?
Yeah, like a stock ticker. Right.
So that it's not just playing at the screen, because the user won't like it gets your attention in a non-annoying way. It's funny.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
And I like that, because I'm like, oh, I would like to look at this. I wasn't, and so that it gives you, what was the graph?
Temperature.
The temperature, but it like gives you, I guess that would be
temperature
like
over time.
Yeah.
Because you could run into a situation where, let's say something bad happened. Mm-hmm. There was a spike in temperature for one reason or the other. So that just, you can come and look back, and determine why things worked out well or why they didn't.
So in that, what else does it show you in there? You can pre-program a recipe?
You can pre-program a recipe. So like, you can, what can you modify? Like, you can change rotation direction.
Okay.
You can change the speed of rotation.
Can it go like this?
Not only can it go like that, but so like you can tell it, turn right, 30 seconds, stop.
To mimic a hand wash?
No. See, I don't know if we want to have that conversation, because I really, I totally disagree that hand washing or a specific motion provides any sort of benefit.
Okay, it's just to change things up, just because.
Well, certain features people ask for that may or may not be significant, but the point being is that you can tell the PLC, you can create a recipe to tell the PLC, turn right 30 seconds, stop for 5 seconds, turn left for 30 seconds, stop for 5 seconds, and then change and go back and forth. Or you can tell it, and then you can tell it, do that motion for 30 minutes.
Okay.
And then stop, soak for 30 minutes, and then let me know. So you push play, it's going to do this agitation motion, and it's going to stop, and then it'll tell you when that's done. Why? Because a typical process, if you don't have a sieve and you're not running continuously, so a typical process is agitate, let settle, so then you can drain.
Yes.
So what I found a lot is I use a lot of time when users are not keeping track of time. So they might let it settle for 30 minutes when they only intended to do it for 10 or 15 because they're doing something else.
Yep.
So it gives you an audio cue. It sounds an alarm and it tells you we're done. It beeps at you. So like, it's time to drain.
Okay.
And today we weren't draining. We were just processing continuously with a sieve.
Yeah,
so
but
it's a different.
Really quick, what is that?
Any automated system will have some sort of agitator that will move at a certain velocity. So anything that you use to agitate will create shear. There is no such thing as a non-shear agitator. All of it will cause shear. And what is shear? Basically, it's this sort of motion, right?
Okay.
And so that'll promote the decapitation or the separation of the trichomes, but it will also create contaminants. Over time, the shear will create small particulate and make your hash green or whatever, right?
Okay.
It's just a function of time. It'll happen pretty much in any, even with hand wash. You do it enough, this is eventually becomes a problem.
Sure.
So, if we remove the trichomes out of the system in real time, the likelihood of trichomes getting damaged is reduced. So the geometric design, the fluid dynamics, everything is made to maximize extraction and to get the trichomes out of the system. And when I say that,
you even have like a little, it's a
a
ramp.
But if you look at the fluid dynamics of the system, there's a dead zone underneath the bag.
Okay.
The false bottom is not a small false bottom. It's like 8 inches. There's a huge area down there, but it is a dead space. There is no fluid flow down there. So the agitator pushes fluid down because biomass floats, trichomes sink. So with that theory, we push a portion of the water down. And since we have a work bag, once water gets out, once a particle gets out of that bag, it's incredibly unlikely for the particles to go back into the bag just because you have a positive fluid flow, like flowing outside of the bag. Okay. So my point being is that even though the agitation, the pattern of agitation and the bag and the tank design and all of those things promote settling of trichomes to the bottom of the tank to get them out of the system, so they don't get hurt.
So then there's a hose.
And so with a sieve, we are able to take those trichomes out of the system in real time, even though they're meant to collect on the bottom. Well, you get them out of the system so you can collect them in the sieve. And when you're washing, maybe you didn't notice this or it wasn't explained at the time, but there's visual cues that the water will tell you how it foams, certain things coming out of it. Because it was such a high quality biomass and whatever, there wasn't a lot of signs of just contamination, of trichomes popping and things like that. But there are telltale signs that once you learn how to use a sieve, you can visually see, oh, I'm having shear issues. I'm grinding up my hash. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so that's when I say that the hash maker is best looking at what the hash is telling you. But you can't see what the hash is telling you when you're pulling hash every 15 minutes. So with this, you're looking at what's happening in real time and you're collecting these trichomes in real time. Nothing bad can happen to them because you've taken them out.
So there's the machine, then there's a hose between the trolley and the sieve.
Yes.
And then that water is coming out. Then it's bringing the hash onto the screens.
Yep.
Water is draining out, and the water goes where?
Back into the trolley.
And there's a holding tank that's with the sieves. Okay. And that's attached. Yep. So it's like trolley and then this separate system that is awesome. I really actually like it.
It's just recirculating. It's just taking those trichomes out.
And it takes that and it brings it back in through the top.
Yeah,
Oh, and there's like
a little sprayer,
like a corkscrew,
corkscrew
kind
type
of
of thing.
thing,
Yeah, and it
and
creates
it
a cone and sprays.
disperses the water.
Yeah, and then so like when you're filling the tank, and you use that to fill, it really sprays the entire surface. So it's really great at soaking because you wet all of your biomass, and that really helps. So like normally what we would do is you put the biomass in, close the lid, and then turn the water on so it soaks the biomass.
Okay. So I noticed when we were putting the biomass in today that me and Andrew were discussing that it's that people are backsealing their fresh frozen, and so it makes it all solid together. And so Andrew had to break it up, but then also he put the impeller, is it, into the water, and it kind of broke up things that some people were like,
Yeah, I had a lot of
why did you do that?
reactions in Instagram.
But it's not you. But Andrew was running it how he and his lab run it, and not necessarily per manufacturer
so
operation, which happens in so many labs, right?
we can debate
So many
differences of opinion on so many SOPs.
Mm-hmm.
Look, at the end of the day, that is how they choose to do it,
Yep.
and I respect that.
Yeah.
A lot of people would disagree with it, but again, so will people disagree about using ice. So will people disagree of even having a automated agitator. Some people will only hand wash.
Some people disagree about having plastic.
Of course, some people will disagree with that.
Do you get a lot of questions about plastic?
Oh, we get a ton of questions about it.
Like what?
Specifically, the propensity of abrasion in plastic, because the typical experience of people with plastics is in a brute container where you're hand paddling it, and if you look at those containers over time, you will see that the walls of that container there's just so much abrasion.
Okay.
And
yeah, but you do something different where you don't have a metal touching plastic in any way, but also what's unique about your system to me is that you wash inside of a work bag that has is that vinyl or what it's not vinyl.
It's some sort of canvas. I don't know the exact name of the material, but it's canvas.
And then silk screen on the inside, and it's square shaped. And then we put in this there's like a little, like a cage kind of, I guess, goes inside to keep it all in place, and nothing ever gets disturbed, but it's like an automatic filtration right at the extraction site. And that is really cool. That's really cool. So it's constantly filtering while it's moving water, while you can catch your hash right then. But these people were continuously washing for 20 minutes. And so they just did that one wash, but they wait till the very end to collect trichomes. And so you only have to do it one time.
Right.
I really like that.
The trichomes are being removed in real time, right? As they're washing, they're being removed. As they're coming off the plant, they're being removed. There's always a portion of the trichomes that will settle in the bottom.
Yeah.
And because it's so well designed to get the trichomes out of the system, some will settle in the bottom. The other thing that we did different today that we might not do, the speed at which they were running the pumps was a little bit slower than I would like.
And before I forget about that, when we were talking about the sound,
right?
The sound of the pumps. So normally, there would be a muffler on the pumps, but they had removed them.
The pumps did not have mufflers,
and what was going on is not. It's not the fault of the equipment, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
So basically, that the muffler was removed because it was icing over, but it was icing over because the compressor did not have an air dryer.
Correct.
So that's not the fault of the.
And you're operating in a room that's
really
cold, unnecessarily cold. So, look,
So
I think that
can't
when
get
it,
enough of how cold that room
Yeah,
was.
no,
I'll be
it-
thinking about it for a long time. So okay.
I think that everything is a work in progress,
Yeah,
and you
sure.
have to continuously improve. And so this was the second iteration of the machine, and the hash pumps that we have now are a little bit better than the one that they were using.
Okay.
And so, like the newest systems that we're running, you can actually change the water in that tank every 4 minutes.
Wow.
So the amount of
So it's faster. where
yeah,
it's moving
you
is
can
way
remove
faster.
20 gallons per minute
Wow.
out of that tank. And
This is
so
pretty impressive.
think about the current, right? You have 20 gallons falling through the top of that tank every minute. So you have that circular, there's a strong current.
Yeah.
And so all of those things help to promote separation and to get the trichomes out of the system.
So this machine, while it's, an original or the second version,
This is the second
version, and there's version 4. or
No, it's just a
Just
continual.
changing
It's a
certain things.
continual improvement of different
Right,
things.
which I love
Yeah.
because that means that you're doing the research and you want to make something better
Mhm.
to
Yeah,
our industry. So
We-
that's great.
with Friendlies, we introduced the zipper bags. So before the bags were square and you could lift them up and everything like that, but now the bags have a zipper in the bottom. So if you did have a hoist, which these guys didn't, you just hoist the bag up and then you unzip them.
Oh, that's nice.
And then it's easier to drain that way.
Yeah.
So, but again, like not every lab is going to have everything. So you kind of have to like fit into what the user has. So you have
Yeah.
that versatility.
Yeah, I like that there's options.
They emptied
That's
that bag pretty,
yeah, they were
pretty easy.
They were quick, and then I was so surprised with how it was like, here you can either, take your time scooping it out, or you can have okay, this is heavy, but and then
Right.
boop, and we washed 40 pounds, right?
40 pounds.
So golden dabs.
Yeah.
Okay, so after that, then you could load up your trays and be on your way. And then, so how they were operating was that they drained all of the water out first because there was still would be more after which makes sense. So it's not just throwing it away or like, here, we're just gonna move on. They were draining. And so would you agree with how they were operating that, or with taking the water out, because then there's more chance of any trichomes that are left over to be able to go over to the sieve before they pull off the
Can you clarify that?
sieve plate? Yeah, at the end of their run, they took out the biomass and did waste with that, and then they were rinsing out
Right. So
more
and-
because there's still like a little bit left.
and
There's still a little bit.
right. And that the reason for that is that because you have the geometric shape of the bottom.
Yeah, pools.
Yeah, it creates a dead zone. So inevitably trichomes will settle there.
Yep.
Right. And that's beneficial when you're not recirculating. So the original design was for the original hash making process where you agitate, settle, then drain and filter. Right. So as we've progressed in the design, now we have a continuous filtration process. So it works really well. I mean, the proof is exactly this issue where the trichomes are just settling there because that false bottom is a true false bottom that has a dead zone where trichomes can chill and be out of harm's way, if you will, right?
Yeah.
So when they're done washing, yes, they have to rinse that tank because there's always a small portion of trichomes there.
Then they drain the water.
Right.
Because there could still be more.
And so
okay.
In this instance, the way they did it, it was a very short wash.
Yep.
If you wash for an entire hour, the amount of trichomes that are left in that reservoir in that false bottom is a lot less, just because you've had that time for that water to. And also with the new pumps, there is such a stronger current because you're pulling a ginormous amount of water of gallons per minute out of that bottom. There's a stronger current pulling everything out.
Okay.
And so you can remove more trichomes faster. And so what's left over at the end of the wash is less. So it's just an SOP thing, right? It's just how they ran this time. it'll change in different operating procedures, right? But that's why they did that. You have to drain all that out to get that last bit of trichomes out. And as you're washing, you can be actually pulling those screens. So like typically people will do like a first wash, second wash. They might even wash up to 6 times. And usually the first and or second wash have a certain quality.
Oh, sure.
And
yeah,
then,
those go on their own
right.
tray.
So washing continuously,
Yeah.
you can stop the sieve
Okay.
to pull the hash out.
Oh, okay.
But you're still agitating and you're still extracting.
Yeah, there's separate power to the sieve.
Yeah.
And there's a valve to turn. You can turn off a valve.
Yeah, you just turn that pump off.
Okay.
Pull, get that pull, but you're not wasting time by actually stopping the machine.
It's still going.
It's still extracting.
It's still going.
It's
Cool.
still extracting.
Okay.
So, and it'll emulate that perfectly. It takes you a few minutes to do that pull.
Okay.
And you continue, turn that pump back on and you'll get your second pull, third pull, so on and so forth. But when you compound it, in an hour or an hour and a half, you can do 6 pulls instead of normally, which that might take you 2 or 3 hours because you have to let that hash settle, then you have to drain it, and so when you add all that time,
it sets a timer and then it stops.
You can.
Okay.
When you're running in a batch mode.
Yep.
But since we were running continuously, you do that on your own. Like the machine never stops. You do a pull if you want to do a pull. Or like if they don't separate as by pulls, if you will, they just sort by size at the end of the wash. You can just leave that thing washing for an hour and then take all of that hash and then sort it by size. But the way they ran today, it was a little bit different.
In batch instead of.
Well, they were running continuously, but so.
Yeah, but they didn't like how you were talking about, like, oh my gosh, I can stop.
Right.
And then I can keep going. And for an hour would be the equivalent of me running all these separate times. So that is actually really cool because you could do a 10-minute.
Yeah.
Then a 20-minute.
Yeah.
Then a 30-minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Where then you like pause, but it's still going. Okay, I rinsed this off. I put it on a tray and now that's loading up or put in the freezer. Okay, now I'm gonna keep, and it just keeps going. That's really smart.
Yeah.
It's really smart. It saves a lot of time. Put a lot of time into saving time in this machine. You did. Actually, it's really quite efficient. So when it's running continuous, you can't set a timer or no.
Well, you can set a timer at the end.
Otherwise, you could set a timer and go, I want you to wash for 20 minutes, machine. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like just for but continuous makes sense. We need to have, is there like a separate timer that's just like a timer that's like separate of like, here's how long I've been running?
Well,
in continuous run? Does
it'll tell you.
From the, okay, cool.
So like
even if it's like timers, it'll still keep.
Yeah, but it tells you how long it's been agitating for.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And then I saw there's a ability to program a recipe in there.
Yeah, you can make as many recipes as you want, and then you can recall, because some cultivars you might want to agitate for longer or stronger or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
So basic specs. What did you say? The trolley weighs 80 pounds.
Something like that.
But moves effortlessly.
What did you think about that?
I like that. You can take it in the room and out of the room. And here, I'm just going to go over here. Like if you were going to load up ice on your first run, you could just I'm going to take you over to the ice machine, and, I'm going to take you over to the freezer. And if I got a cool little ramp.
Yeah, you can put that in the freezer. Yeah.
Freezer.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I like that. I like that it's easy to move it around. The shape of it is cool. It reminds me of do you know the movie, what was it called? Mannequin or something? Where the girl's the mannequin and she's there's these big laundry. It reminds me of that.
Kim Cattrall.
Yes. That's so funny. So, so I like that. So I like that it's easy to get in and out. And then also would like if you had an area that had like your washout like by a floor drain or whatever, I think that would be really convenient, you know, like to be able to just, oh, look, I can unhook. So it's easy to unhook. You just, I could easily disconnect the thermoprobe. That was cool. And then just a regular valve that you
Tri-clamp.
shut off and tri-clamp for your hose connection. So that's pretty easy, you know. So I liked that. And yeah, I think like how tall it was seemed to make sense. We were really deep, but I like the tilted floor, and I like that there was then like a bottom, you know, to make a floor for the netting, you know, for your bag. So I like that a lot. Okay, so so the rest of it's three phase is the sieve. The sieve is three phase.
The sieves are all 3-phase. You can't get them monophase.
Sieves are three phase, and you can stack them.
Yeah.
It's adjustable and
Yeah.
expandable.
Yeah.
I guess I would
Yes,
say.
absolutely.
It's expandable, and the machine we saw today did not have. You have a, like you said, constantly innovative company, right? That you have a different clamp now for the sieve plates. Is that true? Like a
Right.
quick,
So we actually have 4 types of sieves from different manufacturers.
okay.
And so there are higher end manufacturers that have clamps that are easier to clamp on and clamp off.
Okay. So that process, even though I came out and said to Charles, it's so fast, and he goes, we have faster ones now. And I went, oh, okay.
Because they can be, especially at 24 inches,
Like
they can be kind of
that's annoying.
difficult to so there are other sieves that are just easier to clamp on and clamp off. And so it depends on how much energy you have on that agitator, how many levels you can stack. Some manufacturers you can stack up to 5 sizes.
It's like a dehydrator tray.
Kind of like, right?
That's
So,
what
but
I
the same
think of.
concept if you're of your bubble bag,
expandable.
like you want to put 25, 45, you can put whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
But it depends on the energy that the motor exerts. So there's limits, and it all depends on the motor that you have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the cost on those? What do they range? Or is there just
I think
one
prices
version
don't
that-
age very well on
Right.
on the internet, so especially YouTube or something like that. So
Yeah.
all those we post all of our prices on our website. So
Okay.
very transparent with everything. What you see is what you get. All the specs there, all the prices there.
February 24th, 2023. Today, if I were to go and buy it, how much would it cost?
We have systems from 4,000 and change all the way up to 30,000
Okay, for the sieve.
for the sieves.
Cool. And they're probably faster and easier and expandable.
Yeah, and these are standard sieve systems from different reputable manufacturers throughout the world. We work with companies in Italy, Vibro West. Here in the US, we work with 2 different manufacturers. We have a Spanish supplier that we also work with. It just really depends because they have just different engineering. But what I will tell you is that these sieves have been in operation for decades and decades and decades. And all of these companies know what they're doing, and they work in a range of industries, from food service to mining to whatever you name it.
So you're saying don't reinvent the wheel.
There is
Get
no
good
need.
shit that works.
These guys know what they're doing, and there's different quirks in between systems. But if you notice, all of them will use an Ital Vibras motor, because
Okay.
these motors, the way they distribute energy, you can actually change the pattern on how the hash. You see that was like going in a circle like that.
Yeah, I did.
You can make it puddle
And
up in the.
was like, oh.
You can change it.
That's cool.
You can make the hash do different things based on what you're washing by changing the motor has some like counterweights at the bottom, and so by changing how those things are, you can make this thing do a whole bunch of cool things.
It's like a drum.
It's like a drum. So there's a lot of whatever with sound and motion, vibration. So you can make these things do really cool things just by changing it. My point being is that all of these companies, they really know what they're doing, and they have experience in a ton of industries.
Yeah.
This is not a complicated application for these people to understand. And I think the SOP that we have builds on the engineering that these companies have done for decades. Like something very simple. You can't grab a spoon or a metal object to spoon off of that sieve.
No,
That is
it's
a learned
way
thing,
tight.
right?
It's not happening.
So
But
that's
there's
where you
no
can
need
improve.
for it because it's
But that's where you can improve, right? I mean, this is the technology. It's super awesome, but it needs to be done in this. So what we've added in the sieving process is the SOP, not the machine itself. It's like what we're offering there is just the SOP on how to best leverage that awesome engineering that these guys have. Like the sieves are tried and true, they're awesome, but how do you use them? That's the key, not just re-engineering something that is already, like you said, it's awesome.
yeah, it works.
Yeah.
That was from everything I saw, seemed very thought out. So you need 3-phase for the sieve. What power requirements does the Mesclatore have?
So it's 230
Okay.
monophase.
Okay.
So like your dryer or whatever, your
Uh-huh.
that sort of
Yeah.
situation. And any building will have 115 or 230,
Uh-huh.
though not everybody will have 3-phase. And we just don't advocate 115. It's just because you need a huge breaker for that to work well.
Uh-huh.
So it
So,
should
but
not
if you
be
were
an
going to buy
issue.
that whole system, the Mesclatore and the sieve, you would need 3-phase.
If you wanted to include a sieve, yes. But
Yep.
we no longer make the Mesclatore in 3-phase just because we've drastically reduced the size of our motor by
Yeah.
incorporating a gear reducer to it. And so
Yes.
we no longer need the amp drain is so low anyways that it's no longer needed. Before we had an electric lift, now it's pneumatics. Pneumatics, it moves up and down like butter. It's so smooth how it
Yeah.
moves up. I'm really super happy. That's one of the bigger changes in the V2 versus the V1. The
Yeah,
V1
like
had
the
like a
lid.
screw. Like
The
it went up,
lid.
it had a little screw to lift up the lid.
Oh yeah, what I thought was really cool was on the PLC there is the lid even goes up and down on that model. That was really, I was like, oh come on, like, and it like it was very good. Okay, so single phase for the Mesclatore, but for the sieve is 3-phase.
Yeah.
And what other ancillary is it? Are the pump and the what is it called?
The agitator.
The agitator are both built into the skid, so you don't have to worry about like
All that's included. The basic system is
Okay.
a tank and the agitator. The agitator contains a PLC and a pump that comes
tank.
with it.
a tank, an agitator, PLC, and pump.
Yeah, that's the basic kit.
Okay. And then is there an additional pump needed if you're returning?
Yeah, if you're
From the
if
sieve.
you're returning, so when you buy a sieve, typically the sieves are a kit. It's not just a sieve. It's a sieve and the return vessel.
Okay.
So it's not just a sieve because you do need to get that water back, right?
Okay.
So that'll include a return.
Okay. All right.
And we prefer just diaphragm pumps. We actually engineered an AODD pump specifically designed for pumping trichomes. It really didn't exist. I mean, there's a lot of off-the-shelf options that companies use, and the testing that we did showed that there was a lot of damage. You're losing trichomes. So like my concern is like a lot of times people will say, oh, it just doesn't wash very well. It's not a good, and they're not realizing that they're losing hash somewhere. I'm not saying that's always the case, but we found some of these pumps just destroy your hash. So if you're not careful, you don't. So that's why we use those trichome pumps, and they're not expensive at all. Sanitary,
Okay.
I love them.
Oh,
They're
and
good.
I did I ask before, you can use anything to clean on this plastic. What did you say it was?
So
Polypropylene?
the
No?
material is called PPH, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So the material is called PPH, polypropylene. It's a German plastic. made by a company called Simona. And so these plastics are impervious to tons of acids and bases.
Okay.
So like our small filter trolley that we sell, you can actually pump nitric, sulfuric
Wow.
acids through that thing without any problems. I'm not saying that you would need to, but you're fine with the
Yeah.
plastics because if you needed to disinfect this for any, you can use anything.
And you don't have to worry about any kind of like abrasion. Is that the word?
Right. So
Yeah.
you saw that, right? Not only is there, we're not,
The canvas bag protects.
but to begin with, you're not impacting the plastic with anything, right? Because
Right.
we're not
Yeah,
banging
there's
anything.
nothing
There's
that's
no
ever going to hit it. There's
right.
nothing.
But to add a
going to
layer
even
of security,
beat it up.
to add a layer of security to that, you have that bag. We have the bag for a different purpose, right? It's for filtration.
Sure.
But we put that canvas on top where the biomass, just that perhaps maybe after like a year of use or a few years of use, maybe like the twigs and stems would poke that plastic and maybe that would create a problem over time. I don't know, but I don't want to find out. So
Yeah.
we have that canvas that'll take the damage, that'll take the impact if that were to happen because you need it anyway. So why not? And so we did it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What else we got? Anything else?
What did you think? I mean, like, what is your overall honest opinion about it? Like,
I think it's smart. And I think, well, okay, when I just imagine that if that were me operating that, there's things about it that are very easy, that it's ground level, right? That there's such user, it's easy to use. It shows you what's going on everywhere on the system. I know I keep saying it, but I really like the tilted forward ring because I just do. It makes sense. And I feel like I wouldn't feel intimidated to operate that equipment on my own.
do you think one person could operate the machine?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do. I think for me especially, because I'm not like would like a hoist.
Of course. You can get
Make
one.
my life easier and don't hurt my back, thanks.
Yeah.
So that would be like, oh look, it's even faster now,
And would you feel comfortable moving that trolley up and down your lab?
Yeah. It moves very easily. And I could even see, like I could see it going, okay, I'm gonna put the weed in it. Put the weed in it. Okay, that's okay because that's 40 pounds. That's very easy to move. And then I could see putting, well, you've got, it depends on how, I didn't try to move it with the ice in it in the beginning in the water, but then the water, that's right though, because I saw you guys kind of go, you can move this a little. It doesn't seem very heavy.
I'll be honest with you. If you have a flat surface, yes, you can successfully move it around with water, but I'm not going to say easy because it's extremely heavy. So 80 gallons, you're talking about 300 and some odd pounds.
Okay.
400 pounds.
Okay.
When it's totally full. So,
but if you had everything right in line, and it was flat.
Yeah, it could move, but obviously you wouldn't want to move it full of water, right? You would want to drain that water out and do all that and then move it because it's not exactly easy.
Sure.
Not what you saw. Like what you saw, it was empty, and even putting ice and biomass in there, that's easy to move. But once you add those 80 gallons of water, that is a different story. I wouldn't even want to, move it at that point because it's really heavy. It does get really, really heavy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. But other than that, it was I moved it around a bunch of times and it was easy to move with like empty. It was like shopping cart. So maybe a little heavier shopping cart, but still a shopping cart. So yeah, that seemed good to me. Though I love that there's continuous movement of agitation and water leaving and water coming back in. I really like that. Like
What
all of the time. Like I was like, wow, I wouldn't run it any other way but setting like 1 hour in my like boop, I'm gonna wash for 1 hour, and every 10 minutes I pause my drain, turn off the sieve, and then on a train in there back while it's still going.
where do you
That's
think there's
maximizing.
right? I hear you. Absolutely.
And then it's like literally 1 hour. You're doing something else while that 1 hour is counting down.
Yeah, it does free you to do other work, right? If you don't, if you're not, you don't have to babysit it. It does
So
give you a
you're
little bit of time.
resetting, you know, resetting,
Yeah.
taking those different qualities. So I like that. I like that it's all one.
How do you see?
Flow.
How do you see the workflow adding more trolleys?
I think if you, had extra trolleys that were already like cold, loaded, soaking material, you could do 30 minutes on one. Here comes another one, 30 minutes. And with things staying cold, if you wanted to like do it again, you could, you know. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because a lot of the time is soaking,
and
cleaning.
The trolleys aren't that expensive, right? Sorry for interrupting.
No.
They're like $8 something.
$8 something, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And then the machine itself with the PLC and the pump.
The agitator, the PLC and the pump is 32 or something like that.
Okay.
And then you just add as many trolleys as you want.
Yeah, then you can just.
What did you think about the construction of the trolleys? I mean, because they're plastic, what was your impression? I mean, the first time you actually touched it?
Oh, I asked you if it was metal on the outside because it was so fucking cold and solid.
Very different from.
And you were like, nope.
Very different. A lot of people don't expect it. I get that a lot. Like, is that made of metal?
I thought like the color of a file cabinet, like a metal,
powder coated metal or something like that. Yeah.
I thought it was metal.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Fantastic.
Caught me off guard. But and people want to say what they want to say about plastic, but I was like, I bet this is going to be a good insulator. I see why he did that.
It's an igloo cooler, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's not walled, or is it walled?
No,
like
it's solid.
No, it's just solid.
It is a solid sheet of plastic. Yeah, it's a solid sheet of plastic. Yeah.
Okay. How thick is it?
I think it's 25 millimeters, whatever inches that is, but it's like that thick.
Okay.
So it's pretty solid.
I like that, and I like that it's not like tall.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's easy to bend in and get in there, but it's certainly a lot easier than other machines that I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's a good. I like the closeness to the ground. That's good. So yeah, I think it's a great machine.
Where can we improve?
I gotta think about it. Like, oh, would this have been better? I gotta think about it. I like that it can go in and out. Oh, it was cool that when the lid goes down, there's lift ups on both sides. So if you had this not against a wall but out, like that the back of it was against the wall. But technically, what's the back? Maybe that's the back to them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can address it from both sides.
But I would like to be able to access from both sides.
Yeah.
I like that. And there's you can get a little space from the machine with the sieve. So I like that. So I would like to be able to walk around it from at least three sides. But that's not a U improvement. I'm saying I like the little flippy doors.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there was anything. Oh no, because that was it's just the design, the workflow of the lab.
I'm not a fan of how they have the sieve in a corner. It's
Okay.
less than ideal
Why?
because you can't. Same reason you
Oh, get
can't
around
get
it from all
around it
sides?
from all
Okay.
sides. You know what I mean? Like maybe
Yeah.
a work table to put these clamps down would be nice, or some hooks or something. So, look, at the end of the day, you got to roll with the punches. You got to work with what you have.
Yeah, because
and
that's not a judgment of the machine. That's hard because you have to go like I'm separating that from, and nothing that they're doing is wrong in any way.
Right.
It's literally what works for them.
But you're limited, right? These guys had this space already, so you have to work with what you have.
What you've got,
and so this gives you that versatility where you can put the sieve on the left, you can put the sieve on the back, you can put the sieve on the right, wherever, right? It doesn't really matter. It's just based on where you have. If you had an integrated system, it would be a little bit more challenging because you have no option of moving things. This machine, like you said, you can put the back against the wall, you can put it on the left side, on the right side. You know what I mean? Like
what I would improve about the sieve is like the holding tank. Is there I mean, one's higher up, obviously, because it's a sieve, and then one's on the ground. Do both of those have separate wheels?
They do.
They do.
Yeah, they do. They move. They're independent.
They're like, okay, cool. I like that.
And we have some
and they have everything locks?
Yes.
Everything locks.
Yeah. And we have some where the actual trolley slides underneath the sieve.
That's what I was thinking. It
Yeah.
would be like if it were all in one line instead of having it out, but the ability to take it out, like, hey, I got to do this, or I'm cleaning.
Yeah.
Or
it just depends on height, because some of these systems, it would add too much height and it would be too tall. So you have to put it on the side. But some that don't have, they have different motors and different decks. You're able to slide something underneath it. So the height is the limit, where you bump into an ergonomics issue where it just would not be user friendly because of the height.
Okay.
And so we would lower the height of the machine
you don't
and put the trolley on the side.
Danger, you know,
but not even that, but you have to be able to see what you're doing. You have to look at your hash. That's the whole point. If you can't see your hash, you're missing out, right? And so in certain configurations, you would run into that issue if you wanted the trolley underneath, which is why you would put it on the side.
Oh, okay, I get it. Okay.
Fair.
Yeah. Nope, gotta think about it. I'll get back to you.
Well, Jane, I really appreciate you stopping by.
Is there
thank you
anything
for your time? I mean,
any questions though? Like that anybody wrote you? I asked all mine that people wrote me. So are there any questions?
There were, well, we got
I want to hear about haters. You have to, dude. You have to address it. Well, actually, you don't have to.
We addressed a lot of things, you know, like you're going to get a lot of things about ice. I thought ice wasn't needed.
Ice isn't needed if you have a chiller. We did say
their chiller was broken. You know, they didn't have a working chiller. They have a chiller and the jacketed tanks, the chiller, but it wasn't working.
Yeah, their water storage is real pretty.
Oh, beautiful.
That looks like it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely it's
How
a great.
How many gallons is each one of those?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
All right.
So
did we address like ones that you may have gotten?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about plastics. That one always comes up. Really, at the end of the day, you need to see the machine and feel it to really understand that plastics are not an issue, which is one of the reasons why we're here. The other thing is the ice. The other thing is just like the blocks of biomass. Those are the types of things, and most of it really has to do with people love the way they do things and they do not want to change how they do it. So they will see everything in a negative light just because they haven't had the experience, they haven't used the machine. So they're assuming that it operates the way other machines operate.
Okay.
Very different.
Okay.
Very, very different. And so for the most part, we addressed all of those concerns in one shape or fashion.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, then good. We're killing it.
Awesome.
I had a really good time, and I'm so grateful to everybody for caring what Hashfight thinks and what I and what I think. And what was really cool was people coming by, like Alex and Alex, two different Alexes, Turpy Poppy and Alex Siegel. And what I was not expecting was Alex Siegel coming over with his
Spectrometer, the pigment tracker.
Yes, a pigment tracker. And he had tons of experience with hydrocarbon and being able to track pigment with hydrocarbon. But this was like an off the cuff, hey, why don't I attach this? And he will be doing further research with it, which I'm excited about for him. But we did see, because there was a time where it was kind of the water with trichomes at the end in the final rinse out were kind of helped for it to be able to read, and it was picking up information. And so it was like exciting to know that what he was doing. And what I love is that he tried to downplay it. He said, well, this is nothing to write home about. And I was like, what? Because it was showing something. And so the cool part is, oh my gosh, look at these people with this technology, and the view with this technology, and technology that could potentially work together for the right person that needs that type of, it's integrating. I mean, a pigment tracker could get built into the PLC, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if there was a reason, and what Alex is saying, which I love, it, like humble scientist, right? Is, well, and you know what? You actually said the same thing to me when we were in the car about, well, yeah, I could make this, but there has to be a need for it. I might think there would be a need, but people in this industry that are extracting might not see the value in what I created. So like, don't waste your energy if it's not a thing. And so Alex is saying what I love so humbly is, well, I've got to make sure that there's like, do people really care? You know, do they see it as great as I see it, and the need and use for it? And so I appreciate that you guys are like-minded in that way, where you're like, well, yeah, I might think to do this, but like, is everyone going to look at it and go, what's that for? Because they're not that step in the thought process yet. They're just over here doing their thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't get it. But really, in reality, it might be really great for somebody that, you know, has a specific application with the cannabis. And so, yeah, I thought that was cool that we got to add information while we were gathering information. And it was like for me, super special bonus. And on Monday, we're going to go live and do like some data stuff, and then things go out, they'll go for testing
on Monday,
and we'll just talk about, you know, here we yielded this much, and then doesn't Andrew was going to press make some rosin, and we can see that. I love that. It's a yay for me. So we'll do that and follow up again.
Fantastic.
On how we think we did.
Fantastic. Cool. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Cool. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yay. Yay again. Yay twice. So cool.